Boys, whitewashers. There are none. No whitewashers this week. The cricket, Ashes, goes 2-1. England do win at Headingley. We do have a problem with that place. And lots of selection questions going into the Manchester Test, which starts in, still another 4 or 5 nights.
About 9 deep.
NRL, again, no whitewashers. State of Origin, the Blues win the dead rubber. I tell you what, Cody Walker looked like he should have had that number 6 jersey on perhaps the whole series. Bradman Best pretty good on D, but we'll talk all things rugby league as well as Aussie rules. We'll be following live this massive game between the D's and the Lions. The biggest event in women's soccer, or women's sport perhaps, is about to kick off next week in the Women's World Cup, plus a massive final round, UFC 290, and still Volkanovski. Is he the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world? Well, the rankings suggest maybe he is. Bit of F1 over at Silverstone. Danny Rick's back, plus a bit of Wimbledon, British Open gear. Please do remember we've got timestamps. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can skip to the sports that you like. Check us out on the socials. And we like to start the show by shouting a beer. Shauno, take it away. Who are you shouting a beer this week?
Yes, slightly a little bit old for mine because it was, I think, 10 days ago at this point. But a regular of Shout a Beer fame for us. I'm deciding to shout a beer this week for Ash Barty, who had a baby a couple of days ago. So, officially, retired from tennis, retired from the sporting arena, as the best in the world at the point, to take up family life essentially. That was reports, and she's followed through with that and had her first child. So congratulations on that. Enjoying being a first time mum.
Very good. Can't have one, probably breastfeeding. After that, probably gets a little bit hairy. Don't know. Anyways, speaking of.
Breastfeeding?
Best feeding. I'm shouting Bradman Best. Bradman Best gets a double on D-Butt for the New South Wales Blues. Boys, at the start of the year, if anyone was picking their origin teams, probably no one had Bradman Best going out there, but he played his arse off, and the Blues get a win. We'll talk all things State of Origin in just a minute. Heading over to Bali and getting that shin tat did him world of good. He looked unstoppable. He looked pretty good inside the Fox and outside Cody Walker. 21-year-old, and tell you what, the Blues have got some good headaches to have for next year. In that, who do they pick at centre? Because they've they've definitely got a lot of them. But enjoy a beer. I'm sure he had plenty Wednesday night, and is he backing up for tonight? I'm not sure. We've got the Aussie rules on, but we'll check in just a second.
We could probably switch over for a second.
Also, probably the best name getting around in sports in general. So enjoy a cold one on me, Bradman Best.
Very good. Yes. Not much news in the NFL world at the moment. So
he's named. Sorry.
He's playing?
Yep.
Nice.
And Max, I'll show it.
Yep.
Throw it over to you.
Yeah. Don't worry about me.
How's your week, baby? Sorry.
I'll just go home. Wait, I am home.
Still got to get upstairs, brother.
Yeah, true.
Right,
see how many cans I get through tonight. So not much happening in the NFL world, so I thought I'd shout Quinton Williams a beer of Bless You, Thank You fame when he was doing his rookie interviews. Coming off his rookie deal, he re-signed with the New York Jets for $96 million over a 4-year deal with $66 million guaranteed, making him the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL at the moment.
That's a bit of cash. How old is young Quinton?
Cash.
He'd be 25?
26-ish.
26?
Coming off his rookie deal.
That's a bag.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money there for Quinton Williams.
It is.
That Jets defense starting to get a little bit nasty.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it well deserved for him too, because I saw a stat that he's, for the Jets, when he's on the field, they have the number one amount of pressures. When he's off, they're last. So he not only really helps them out, but he makes everyone around him better. So.
Bro, if you're his agent rocking up to that in contract meeting, the stats don't lie, but in this case.
Yeah. That's it. Well, talking of his stats, last season he had a total of 55 tackles, 12 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 recovered. For 12 yards, so definitely very productive on that.
Not bad for an interior lineman.
Pretty handy player, old Quinton.
Yeah.
That'll get us into the mop of the week, and the mops this week is going to the West Indies in terms of their cricketing prowess. They've missed out on the World Cup. That's going to be the first ODI World Cup without the West Indies, and they're over they're at home playing against the Indians right now. Shauno, did you catch much of the first 2 days of this Test match?
I don't think many people would have caught the first 2 days of this, besides probably the Indian faithful or hardcores, because it's been a
one-way traffic.
Yeah, that's probably the best. So I was going to say shit show, but it's close enough to being one-way traffic. Really bringing into question whether it's worth the West Indies playing Test cricket at the moment, because they've very much fallen away, all out for 150, and then the Indians went out and easily chased that down, and they had both their openers scored tons. So just showing that the difference in the class and the tiers at the moment, how far away they've fallen.
If you talk about tiers, like West Indies is now the bottom tier of Test cricket. It's almost getting to the point, like you say, should they just be playing against Ireland and Bangladesh? Like, do we even waste our time with these Test matches against India?
Yeah. Or are they warm-up games?
Yeah. We saw the one-way traffic that was the West Indies Tests over here in the summertime, just gone. I think they're back this summertime for a couple. It's getting beyond a joke. It's sad for such a proud sort of cricketing area to have fallen as far as they have. And I think maybe, look, getting dished by India, they are only 2 days into the Test, but they're going to lose this by an innings, you'd reckon.
Kohli might actually get it done.
He might do. Well, his openers have had no trouble getting tons out there.
Yeah, Paul Shidman only getting 6.
But for mine, it's the missing out on the white ball World Cup, which maybe stings more, because that's their forte. That's we've invested so little into Test cricket over the years, over recent memory. One could forgive their lack of performance in this one in the red ball format. However, on paper, you'd think that white ball team should still make a World Cup, and for them to miss out when the powerhouse of the Netherlands goes through. It's a dire stage for West Indies cricket fans. We've spoken a bit about it on this podcast in the past, but I think this is the nail in the proverbial coffin.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at some of those numbers, it's not like India were playing at a significant pace. They faced 113 overs.
Shoot up some balls, baby.
Yeah, just happy to hit it around and soak up the game. They'll probably bat once and then job done. So they're trying to get as much batting practice.
Yeah, bit of a net, bit of a stick.
Yeah, how many bottles did West Indies have?
8, I think. Roach, Joseph, Cornwall, Warwigan,
9.
Holder, Braithwaite, Hansley, Reefer, Black. 9. You're right. So
just trying everything.
Besides the keeper,
and then one more, and then you're set. Shout out to young Jaiswal, I think his name is. We've seen him in the IPL. He's made 140 odd. He's 21. So there's another young Indian stick that everyone else has got to worry about.
Yep. Click on the West Indies team. How they're? Oh, well, I guess half the team's there. It's not like
9 out of 11.
Yeah. I was going for name value because I think we talked about this in the past, but it's not.
Yeah, but Braithwaite and Chandapal and Blackwood and Holder and Alzari Joseph. Look, they're all staples.
The big fella comes back in the team.
Rakeem the Dream, he's there.
He was their third highest scorer.
Yeah, he's going to go out and score 300 in the second innings and eat 18 pies. And
big slugger.
Big time. No, it's a sad day for West Indian cricket, but look, it's been a long time coming. So they get the mop of the week. Cricket fans would like to see him do a bit better, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, well, I think cricket fans have been waiting for the West Indies to return to the form of the 80s.
Not that good.
It's 40 years ago now.
Like mid-90s good.
Right.
Yeah.
Mid-90s good would be nice.
Yeah.
Still need Australia to be able to beat them.
Speaking of, let's talk some cricket. No 5-0. No 5-0 fuck off. No 5-0. The whitewash is off the table. It was a good Test match, although, look, it could have been a bit worse if England knew how to catch That is for sure.
Well,
that
our
is for
Pacific Englishman knew how to catch.
Indeed, although he's done a bit for him recently. Let's talk about the third test that has wrapped up a couple of days ago over there in Headingley. England get the win by 3 wickets. It was a good test. It went down to pretty much the wire, but England getting the bickies in the end. They did win the toss and sent us in, and if it wasn't for a bloke they call the Bison, we could have been real strife in this one.
Definitely big time. He wasn't the only one dropped. He was dropped on 12. Head was dropped multiple times as well, and that was kind of the big difference in that first innings. I think the stats from Johnny were like 9 catches and 1 stumping, but he had 7 drops and 1 missed stumping as well.
That's over the 3 games, is it?
I believe so, yes. Let's go with the 3 games, yes. But, a number in this one, unfortunately, in this, I think that equated to almost 150-odd, let's go for just quick math, of runs that they leaked that they could potentially have not had.
Well, yeah, Bison was dropped on 12. He makes 118.
Well, makes most of them.
106 right there.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest one. But then they went through the back end pretty quickly.
Fucking oath.
Yeah, to keep it to 263. And I think when you go back in and look at the second innings for the Australians, that was probably the difference, I reckon, is how quickly they got through the tail end and they didn't really add any extra value.
No.
Because I think if they scored another 50, this would have been a very different test match because we basically got to the point of Wokes and Wood on the last day, and maybe a Scott Boland dive, and with 50 to go, they had 2 wickets at that point. So, again, very different test match. Potentially.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Is your tail not making runs the difference in test matches? Possibly.
Wood was a big inclusion for them.
Yeah, he's scary. He actually bowls genuine wheels. You could see in this first innings how he cleaned up our tail with no dramas and gave our top order a bit of curry as well. That ball to Kawaja where Uzi just played all around it, poles everywhere. Yep. Pretty scary. We've got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's David Warner versus Stuart Broad. Broad got him twice in this test match. Yep. A lot of speculation leading into the 4th test as to should Davey, hang up the gloves. He has said that at the end of the year he does want to retire at Sydney. Does he warrant selection until then?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you want to save maybe some of that selection chat to the end about what team we go into the 4th Ashes, because there's a few blokes knocking the door down that are currently in England as well. So yeah, it could be a bit of an interesting team. I think it might be pitch, deck dependent as well. And that's probably for Todd Murphy because he had no role in this game.
No,
generally just I think because the pace of the game was. Besides the rain, could have probably been a 3-day test.
Yep.
Lost a fair bit of game time across the 4 days to the rain, which spread it out. They spread the test out, but it was a very fast flowing game of cricket.
What about our sort of middle order? We haven't seen a whole lot out of top 5 ranked bat in the world in Marnus Labuschagne. He's made starts and just not getting on with them.
Well, Smith, outside of his ton, bit the same. So it's
that kind of speaks volumes to where we're at as a team as well.
We need one of them to go. Like it was Kawaja, and then it was Smith.
Well, imagine when one of them, like when Marnus pulls his finger out and actually goes on with it.
Yeah.
Pulls his fingers out, it's a bit rough, but when all our elite sticks bat to their potential, England's in a world of trouble, you would think.
Yep.
Anyways, this one did get to 4 for 85. We were sort of on the ropes, and insert bloke who hasn't played Test cricket for 4 years, most hated man in Australia by his own words at that time, and goes out and makes a run and ball 118 and essentially saved this innings. What do we think of the Bison and his efforts there?
I think it was a selection masterclass. Because if you go back to the second test and when they had Cam Green and Kerry at the crease and they bounced them for about 2 hours, short stuff for 2 hours, and they didn't score a single run until Green got the shits and threw the bat at it and got caught. they went out and found the guy that's probably played on the bounciest pitch on the planet for the longest amount of time, and he loved it. They had to bowl him, they didn't bowl him any short stuff. It was completely different when, they switched and the head was them facing. It was all short because they just knew the way he played that so well. So I think that was a genuine, great selection from that regard. And in hindsight, as I was watching it, I was just like, when he first went out, I was like, oh, it's Marsh. He's probably going to sky one and be out for not much. But then, seeing the way England were treating him, I was like, oh, now I'm seeing why they've picked him. Every time they bowled a short ball, it went for 6. So they didn't do it very often.
Have you seen a bloke strike the ball better than that in Test cricket in recent memory? It was like just about everything as it was coming out the bowler's hand. You're like, fuck, he's seeing this beach balls like that guy, the pace of that ball heading back, that one that nearly took out Stuart Broad. My goodness, I don't know if I've seen a better 118.
I can only think of
the fact he was striking at 100.
And just didn't care about the situation. Just went out and played his game, and it was just about everything came out of the middle. Didn't really look like getting out, except for we have to talk about it that drop from Joe Root on 12, and
should have been automatic.
Well, we're lucky that he did spill the beans there, because we're staring down the barrel of about 120 if he didn't spill it. But tell you what, the Bison looked pretty good. He scored 92 runs of his 118 from boundaries.
Yep.
Pretty wild kind of stuff. And I think in that partnership, 155 with Head, do the maths, Marsh made 118 of that. So a pretty crazy innings and pretty crazy redemption story for a bloke who hadn't played Test cricket for 4 years. Did you say there was a bit of few laughs had in the press conference, and the fact that S Marsh, the older brother, was in Bali for his 40th. So the old man was over there touring around. Oh, yeah, he's probably not going to get a gig. Fuck it, I'll go to the golden child's 40th birthday over in Bali. He leaves. He gets a call up. Oh, fuck, I'm not going to say it. That's all right. They're watching in a pub in Bali on the Bintangs, no doubt. Going mental, and then the presser after day one. I don't think you'd get many better in world sport. Mitch Marsh going on from saying he was the most hated man in Australia to he's the first bloke to ever score 100 on a UK holiday, a Test 100 that is. Playing I'm sure on in the alleyways of London, and little quick pick-me-up game between drinks. And then also alluding to the fact that it's 3 days until S. Marsh's birthday, and hope that he makes it, because you can imagine a few bintangs being consumed in that. So just showing how cool a customer he is when it comes to the media and the personality that is Mitch Marsh. And
I think Cummins as well has been excellent in his press conferences too.
Yeah, I think so too. So just a nice all-round story, I think, for a guy that did cop so much stick. And granted, probably that run through sort of 2017 to 19, maybe in that Test team a little bit longer than what his performances warranted. But a nice redemption story there to go out there and play the most dominant innings in Australian Test cricket in recent memory.
Especially in England. And he also bowled and had genuine swing as well, so which I think was a really added value. To answer your question from before, I think the only other batsman I've seen recently hit like that is probably Stein. Not in the Test arena.
As a claim.
Big boys with big bats hitting into the boundaries very quickly.
Stokes perhaps.
Stokesy, yeah. Well, I guess speaking of which, going to England's first innings, looking all right there for the Aussies, and then as they seem
we're on top. We were just on top, and that bloke Ben Stokes. Is there a more clutch cricketer getting around in world cricket at the moment? It doesn't seem like he gives two fucks about what the situation is.
Yeah, I also feel like the Australians in this Test match and the last one kind of lose their way when they get into the tail and also have Stokes there, and they just go everything short, kind of chasing errors from him. And yes, he will end up making an error, but he also might score 80 of 108. So, before he get there's a drop there from Stark, but also to get him out was a miss hit that was skied. So you're fishing for mistakes from trying to hit it over the fence. But in the process, you're bleeding a lot of runs. And he basically wiped out whatever lead the Aussie potentially would have had at this point. So they closed down to, 26, I think was the lead by the end.
Yeah, I think it was. It's so indicative of where Australia versus England in England has been over the last few years, in that we really get on top, and Cummins was bowling so well. So well. Had 6 for in the innings, pretty much tore through their top order. We get the big wicket of Root. And then this bloke Ben Stokes goes out there. He was on 30 when Broad came out. So they've got 2 wickets to go, and he just can flick that switch and start dominating it. So he took a liking to Todd Murphy, took a liking to the short ball, as you said, and not to take away from what Mark Wood and Harry Brook did in this Test match, but for mine, that was the innings that really set up England to have the opportunity to go and win this Test match.
Keep it competitive and keep it close.
For sure.
He's kind of taken over that, like, as taking over captain for the team from Root, he's also taken over, like, that, just being that consistent batter as well. Like, just, you can rely on him to put up a big score.
Yeah.
That's a good point there, Monks, because it always used to be, get Root and we can win.
Yeah.
And now it's get Root and get Stokes and we can win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think just bowling short stuff to him constantly
I agree with him.
I'd be more interested to see bring some more line and length into it, because he's a big lad. He's got big pads. And, see if he can get his feet out of the way.
Bowl at the stumps.
Yeah, bowl at the stumps. So a lot more chances for wickets. So
tactically, hindsight. But when you're watching it as well, you're kind of thinking, is this the right tactic?
Yeah.
And when
you don't need 4 or 5 short balls to him in and over, like, and
with
a Yorker. Like,
what about when Mark Wood's going out there and he's hooking, everyone for sixes, and he scores a quick 524? Like, you start to think,
just bowl at the stumps.
Yeah, maybe a few. A big Mitch Stark in-swinging Yorker wouldn't go straight.
Yep.
So yeah, it's about 26 was the lead, and then we went out there, and again, Davey Warner versus Stuart Broad. It's Broad always getting the bickies, it seems. Big send off, and we will save it for the selection chat. But Warner moving forward, obviously a lot of question marks around that. Uzi and Marnus, both good starts, but didn't go on with it. Smudger getting 2 and hitting it straight down mid-wicket's throat. And Johnny, look, there wasn't much in this. He said, see as much. He said, see as much.
Yeah, I reckon Steve probably thought he said something else. Like, but then also clarified and said, see you later. Cheers, see you later. Yeah, which is not what he said. But
he also didn't say anything worse than that.
No, exactly. So nothing to do about it.
No, I agree. Travis Head is pretty good at cricket, 77, and really another innings saver from a middle order stick in this one. We make 224. The wicket shared in this one, which really set up a grandstand finish. About 250 in the 4th innings chase is right on par for entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the Aussies needed to get 300 to win this, and they still had a chance, but it was going to be a lot harder. And 250 was just too appetising, I think. And they were doing a good job. They were working their way through the wickets. The Australians, that is, kind of getting closer and closer. But it's even when they got Ben Stokes, you think, we got a chance, but there just wasn't enough to defend.
And you got to give kudos to Harry Brook. I literally just said 5 minutes ago, if you get Root and you get Stokes, you're a chance. This guy, he hasn't played much Test cricket, but he looks pretty good when he gets going. And
Crawley and Duckett have been good.
Well, that's true.
Sending Ali out of 3 was interesting. But I guess that's kind of what he does in the one days as well. Just go out there, see if he can score quickly, and then we can bring out, follow that with Root. Brook and Stokes.
My feeling was that Brook was hurt or something, which didn't seem to be the case. And I would have thought, maybe it's a licence. Tactically, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, it didn't cost them. Yeah. And when we got those big wickets down the order with Bairstow and Brook going, I actually thought, oh God, we've got a sniff here. We've got a sniff.
Getting closer.
Chris Wokes, there's a pretty handy 32 there, really.
Yeah.
Starkey gets 5 in this one. Cummins got 6 in the first innings. Scott Boland finishes the test with 0 poles, and Todd Murphy bowls a total of 9 overs, I think, in the whole test match.
Yep, correct.
Tactically, what's our thoughts there? Does a fit Josh Hazlewood warrant the dropping of the Builder Manor statue, MCG Performance Scobo, everyone's favourite net bowler?
Yeah, I don't think.
Is there a world where we go 4 quicks? Thoughts?
It's going to be a very interesting, because I've seen a lot of interesting takes on this. To answer your question on Boland, I think he just hasn't had the results that he probably would like in England. So they've already announced that Hazlewood and Green are fit. So I think Hazlewood would come straight in for Boland. For Todd Murphy, I think with what we talked about before, depending on what the pitch is, and from the last 2 matches and what those pitches look like, probably doesn't warrant selection. So you've got then Cummins, Hazlewood and Stark. Potentially, you just whack Mitch Marsh in that team. Bowl deep. Bat deep, sorry. Bring Cameron Green straight back in. So you've got the 2 sort of all-rounders. But then there's also in that world of, Michael Neese has been bowling and batting quite well.
Yeah, made 176 not for Glamorgan in the week.
Yeah, so
Came in at 7 for 93. They made 400.
So then that answers a conversation of, do you drop Warner? Does then say you move Head or does Marsh open? And then you bring in Nisa and you've got Cam Green in there, and then you've got plenty of quicks, all the options you want, plenty of big hitters.
On form.
Bat to 9.
On form, yes. All of that makes sense. The Australian public, obviously, not obviously, but from what you get the feeling
media,
of
like you said,
in the comments and the general sort of rhetoric, that's what the Australian public wants to see. But is cricket based on form? Has a bloke that's been, a staple opener for how many years, has he earned the right to play through these last 2 tests and come home and retire with dignity? Has he?
What's his record in England look like?
Horrendous.
Yes.
Horrendous. There's no argument.
So if you go on form,
yeah, but what did the last 2 years of Ricky Ponting's career look like?
True.
And I'm not saying,
but were they still winning?
That's possibly a difference. Are we still? We're up 2-1.
We're up 2-1.
Does someone earn the right to play out and fall on their sword with dignity?
Well, I think we've seen Cricket Australia is happy with that. The whole Aaron Finch kind of saga and how that played out. I think they've probably asked Warner what your plan is. They've got it set in stone. They're happy with that, and they'll probably just follow through on that.
That's my feeling too. I think
if we go to. If it's 2-2 and we go on the 5th test, maybe a different conversation. I mean, they want to, if it gets out by broad again for single digits, then I think there'll be a lot of pressure to make a significant change. In this, since like you said, we're up 2-1. He did get 60 in one of those tests, didn't he?
At Lords in the first innings.
Yeah, so, they might be like, okay, we'll just ride it out with him. Marnus hasn't been firing real great, so let me look at his record.
Right. If you want to point the fingers, Marnie hasn't made many more runs.
Yeah.
I think it's 3, perhaps.
But then again, there's also that conversation: is he struggling because he's got to go out and bat too early?
Well, and that's the argument around. Can Barnes open? And he's essentially been doing it anyway in this series. I've got those numbers here. So Marnus from 3 knocks has 144, averaging 24. Carey has 142. He's between them, and then Warner has 141, averaging 23 in this series. So there's not a lot to on that base. Davey Warner being dropped, being justified outside of Marnie's not playing that much better, and no one else is really banging down the door outside of the argument that could Travis Head or Mitchell Marsh open the batting?
Yeah, true. And if you look at that, what's Cam Green, the lowest recognised bat for Australia?
Yeah, only the 2 tests, but he's only made 84 runs at 21. So,
and considering the guys he bats with, say Head and Carey, are significantly above him, that kind of raises a few questions. But I think he's so young, you just you ride it out with him.
Well, that's an interesting thing with Cam Green, but I thought he was the anointed one, the golden child, and then a minor hamstring strain, and Mitch Marsh goes out and does what he does. Is there a world where Cam Green misses out on this fourth test?
True.
Again, talking about form.
Yeah.
The bloke did make 100 in India not that long ago. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate. This is not perhaps my own thoughts, but I have seen the argument, out there in the zeitgeist that Cam Green perhaps doesn't warrant a spot in this fourth test.
Yeah, but then has also questions about, if Cam Green's feeling in the gully, is there some of those that go over Mitch Marsh's head are getting gobbled up?
He has been phenomenal in the gully.
Yeah,
for
so
a big
what
man
he
to
adds
move
to you
the
on
way
the
he
field,
does.
yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe bowling England isn't his best cup of tea, but bowling Australia, he's probably better than Marsh. But then you look at Marsh, he's probably one of the few that actually had some really decent swing in this match from the Australians. So
it's nice, wasn't it?
Yeah,
bit of sideways movement.
Exactly. So whether we, you pick him for a bit of that, it's an interesting conundrum. And I think the questions being asked of Cummins and of McDonald, the coach, there haven't been any concrete, yes, Davey's in the team. It's been more, we'll look at all the options, we'll have to review. So, yeah, I think there's probably a few question marks being asked around there. Yeah. That's what loss will do to you. You start reflecting that and start asking questions, yeah. But, again, they're still up 2-1 in the series.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Are you worried after Headingley?
No, I think that, again, it was another very close test match. I think we'll have to probably go back and have a look at how, Wood, the way he bowls, impacts our team.
Yep.
But you've been facing Stark in the nets for the better part of a decade, so I think the guys are probably used to short stuff and being bowled out quickly, especially being Australians. So I think that'll be okay. Maybe it was, I think they did a comparison of Headingley was the fastest pitch they'd played on so far as well. It was like 2 Ks quicker than
Lords, and
then it was like 6 or 7 Ks even quicker than the Edgbaston, which was very, very slow. So same thing. It might depend on what pitch they get in the full test.
Might be horses for courses. We are still a few nights away, so plenty can happen, I suppose. In the
Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
In the lead up, Wednesday. Very tasty. Major League Cricket, boys. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Well, we just mentioned starter, but I was going to ask England. Would they make any changes?
They may have some forced ones.
Because Jimmy Anderson's not in the squad currently.
Yes,
he was rested.
They should have a current squad. But in terms of changes, who would be?
I think Johnny's been getting the most.
Yeah,
most media, and
his glove work really begs the question: Does England have a better gloveman? I think the answer is yes. And I think Folks is probably the best gloveman in England. Will it be horses for courses in terms of the deck? Moeen, as much as we've liked to bag him, or I've liked to bag his off spin bowling on this podcast, he's actually got a few handy wickets.
Yep.
It's a good question. Their top order hasn't been super route reliant, which we've seen in previous test matches.
I don't feel like there'd be any changes in that. Like Crawley, Duckett, Brook, Root, Stokes, I think it's all fine. It's probably Barstow, whether they want to change keepers, less so he's batting, or more keepers. Whether they pick the spinner, or whether they go heavy seam, and then it's who are your seamers? Do they rest Robinson and they put Tongue in and go full pace attack?
I think
they have to bring Jimmy back.
My personal thought is they should rest Robinson forever.
I'd say too.
He bowls very pedestrian, and he has a test average of 22, which boggles the mind. Yep. Anyways, it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. I think Tong very unlucky to miss out on that third test, given those troublesome balls, that one that he bowled to Warner, which was an absolute jaffa. So they've definitely got no shortage of quicks. I think, probably the biggest question is Johnny Bairstow, the best gloveman in the UK. That might be the big one leading into Old Trafford.
And then
this Major League Cricket, boys, is it in the US? Is that what's
correct.
happening?
Yep.
It's the US's T20 tournament.
And it's IPL back kind of shit.
Yes, yeah, it's heavily IPL backed. I guess trying to push the cricket into the American market, which is one of the biggest markets for sport. So, trying to make billions of dollars and make more money. I think is it an 8-team league?
6, I think. I saw.
Okay. I think
I've got no idea.
Yeah, I think they did well enough for international talent, but I think they struggled a little bit. But from what I've seen, and it's only just kicked off, to see if the quality's any good. I think the viewership and, of course, the attendance will be the interesting ones. I'm not sure exactly where they're playing these matches either.
So the teams, Monks is just bringing them up. They are like spin-offs of the IPL teams. The Texas Super Kings, the LA Knight Riders. So that's at Grand Prairie Stadium in Dallas. I don't think that's a big one. San Francisco Unicorns.
There you go.
There's the Mumbai Indians, but it's New York Indians. Seattle Orcas.
Yeah.
Surely the graphic designers could do a better job than this. And
DraftKings right there.
the Washington Freedom. That's out there with the worst names in sporting history. The Texas Super Kings. Mean logo. I'm going for Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, Texas.
But
Texas.
Come on, they're taking the piss with that Orcas. Come on, man.
we click on it. Who's in their squad?
It's like they're like good teams.
Yeah.
Like
Roster.
there's Quinton de Cox there. Hetryer, son of J.S. Aurea.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones, running back from Green Bay.
Yeah,
A few South African studs.
a few local.
A few more South Africans. Look, and I think looking at these players, AJ Ty, it brings me to my next point, which is surely there's enough Indian people in the United States to warrant some interest in cricket in the US.
Oh, I definitely think so. It's just whether they're still super interested in cricket or whether they've gone into the other major sports over there. Transition to baseball as an example. That's not a bad team, that one. But
There's some big names. They've attracted some reasonably big names in the world of cricket.
well, I think they found, and it's also a good time for them, being just after spring break, etc. So,
Spring break.
before college football officially goes back in a couple of weeks. So it's a nice kind of middle ground for that. I don't know. Do they know where they're playing?
In terms of games?
Ground, sorry, yeah.
We saw that Dallas one. There's,
Yeah, they were
I think
making one.
it's all over the place though.
Yeah,
Bring up
all
their
place.
fixture.
Grand Prairie Stadium. Are they all
Maybe
there?
it is all there.
That's
they're all
yeah.
there.
So they're at
There
the
you go.
officially built. There's one, North Carolina.
Carolina. Maybe they move it around, have hubs and
Yeah, it looks like that.
So,
And then they come back. Yeah,
so half of it's in North Carolina, even though there's no North Carolina team.
yeah.
It's
The rest is
interesting.
in Texas. Oh, it's a start. I think it's the first kind of entry really into cricket into the US, and all good luck to them. See if they can grow the sport over there.
Yeah, from looking at this, my only thoughts would be baseball's probably dead in 3 years, I reckon.
cricket's just going to take over.
Yeah, I reckon maybe 24 months, the death of baseball.
That's it.
One can hope.
We'll see what happens, boys. We'll see what happens.
Well, where do you play our mate Utani? Do you think he bowl? Is he in the mould of Mitch Marsh?
Well, he does everything in baseball, so he's like a Bison or a Cam Green. He fields in the gully.
Got a big enough rig.
Yeah, makes the best sushi on the team. He's sweet. No, look, we don't mind our baseball, and obviously tongue in cheek. I don't think the major league cricket.
Yeah, for the next 100 years probably. So.
But it's a nice little business initiative, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, like, there's been a big push, obviously, for a lot of the American sports to become worldwide. Like, again, going back to NFL, they talk about a lot of European teams, the NBA's
They
very
announced-
heavily invested in Asia.
Yeah, the NFL, they announced
Interesting that-
during the week that the Germany game where it's Patriots taking on, I don't remember, sold out instantly.
Might be the Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 75,000 stadium sold out instantly. So
But that's kind of the other way. That's bringing a big American sport to an
Yeah,
audience.
Yeah. So that's what I was getting at. Like, it's good to see that other sports are trying to get back
Into
into America
America.
as well. Like,
Oh,
you've got cricket,
The
the union's
soccer.
sort of been floating around for a few years now.
Yep.
rugby league going to Vegas, bro.
Rugby league, yep.
Rugby league. Mate, State of Origin.
There you go.
Pinnacle sport.
Speaking
Well,
of,
that's going to New
Speaking
Zealand.
of.
Segue there for you.
Yep, so New South Wales win State of Origin, the whole series, last try wins.
That's it, yeah.
Wow.
Not how it works.
We saved ourselves. We.
Yeah.
I was out there.
You two
mate.
wankers.
Very, very heavily
Me, Bradman
involved.
Best,
I saw you out on the pitch, and then the security had to take you away.
Mate, I would
One
have
of three.
I would have gotten to row K before Seki's got me. Absolute dribble that is. But what's not dribble is there's no whitewash. Saved ourselves the embarrassment of going down 3-0 to, I believe, the youngest team ever assembled by Queensland. 24-10. You got the feeling that this wasn't a dead rubber by the way that they were playing the footy. It was very open. It wasn't so defensively minded. Maybe not even as big with the shots that were put on in the first half. But it was entertaining football.
Yeah, I think both teams went with a more of expansion game plan instead of trying to get a really grindy football game, especially in the first half. They kind of changed in the second half for from the 40th to the 60th minute when there was no points, and it was a very grindy out game. I guess the Queenslanders tried to work their way back into it. But in the first half, it was all expansion, sideline to sideline stuff, which is great, which ended up in some excellent tries.
It was really good viewing, obviously for Blues fans, but I think for fans of the sport in general, there was a common theme to the way that the Blues were scoring down that left edge, and there was a lot of it was off the back of Cody Walker.
Yep.
Dave Fafita did crash over for the first try to get the Maroons off the mark, and I kind of thought, oh, fuck, here we go again. Had that feeling about it. But Brian Toto with the quick hit back. And can we just talk a minute about Brian Toto and the series that he's had for a bloke that's playing on the wing for the losing team? Ran the most meters by
264,
by far. Tackle bus off the chain. People say, oh, does he get found out underneath the high ball?
A little bit.
Yeah, on occasion.
Well, that Fafita try, so that was over Toto. So,
But would you trade that for, a bloke makes 600 something plus meters through 3 games? He does things that other wingers can't do.
Oh, definitely. And I thought Queensland's used this as a little bit of a tactic as well. They because he did a lot of running in that first half, and then he kind of wore out towards the back of the half, and then Hammer scored that try down that side. Really, because they just him and Crichton were out on their feet, so that really pushed it down the outside, and they used it. So it looked like both right edges essentially for both teams were a little bit sceptical, but in the second half, Crichton defended really well, helped cover off Toto, and then they soaked up all that pressure, and then with AJ Brimson kind of coming out around the back, had no options and really didn't have the pace to kind of push that left edge, and the Queenslanders didn't look likely to score points in that second half.
Where do we rate that Fox try in Origin folklore?
Not as good as Hammer's one.
That's fair, and we've got to talk about the Hammer in a second. It was nice for me to see the Fox go out and show what he can do, because
I thought
for mine there's been a lot of
always love a chip and chase.
Well, and a lot of speculation as to, does he warrant selection? Obviously missed out last year.
I feel like they played more of their natural game in this one than in the second game, where they kind of went with way more niggle. Like Fox was doing way more niggly stuff, whereas this he just focused on playing footy and got a good service from Cody Walker, and then they kind of dominated.
He's so fast. He's such a clean finisher, and let's talk about Cody Walker. So hadn't played, I think, since 2019. With the ball in his hands, is he the best attacking half in the NRL at the moment?
Well, if it's not Munster, it's definitely him. So,
and that's a comparison.
Yeah,
that New South Wales need a Munster.
Yep.
And for mine, watching that, I was like, well, there's a Munster.
Yeah.
It begs the question: should Luai have played game 1 and game 2? Is it a package deal with with Nathan Cleary, and what does, if it's Freddie in 2024, but what does the coach of New South Wales do?
Yeah,
for mine, I'd love to see Walker and Cleary.
Yeah, unsurprising, the 4 best players kind of for New South Wales were from Souths. It's like, oh, pick some Souths guys.
Yes. Oh, that's what you had been saying.
I said I've been saying pick Cody Walker since game 1. So, he said he's peaking his powers at the moment. So, next season's next season. But current this season, what we've seen so far, outside, Souths as a team miss Latrell, but the rest of those guys have been playing excellent. So, and they did a really, really good job in this one.
That's it. I think it's an interesting dilemma with the package deal. Like, if you I think Cleary's probably a cut above everyone else, but if Luai's out, you keep Cleary and have Cody Walker, or do you dump Cleary as well for like Mitch
pick the best players, bro? Walker's the best.
I don't think Jerome Luai should play Origin again.
Yeah, and I don't. And then, that'll be the conversation with the coach.
Cleary's still the best in terms of
for 7
combination.
Yep.
And then the only argument would be Nico Hines for mine. And if he can beat a top 8 squad, that'll really help his chances. But, he won the Dally M last year and could go very well to winning it this year if they can play well against top 8 sides. That would be my only conversation there for Nathan Cleary. So.
I think the whole having a dig at fans as well, and you've got to go to work tomorrow, you idiot, kind of rhetoric.
Yeah, it's so silly.
And
then have your coach explain that what the post actually meant.
Yeah, apparently there was death threats, and if that's the case...
Yeah, but Latrell deals with death threats on a weekly, and he's not...
Well, that doesn't make it okay.
I'm not making it okay, but he's not out here attacking, you have to go to work tomorrow.
I think it left a bad taste in the mouths of the Blues fans, and look, you can only base your argument off what you see on the field, and from what I saw on the field, Cody Walker lit it up, and should definitely be at least in the conversation for having the 6 on his back next year.
Surprising how big of a difference it was, and it really caused Ngannou to struggle in his defensive reads, and they had to change up their defensive structures. They moved Cotter across as a big guy that could move around, trying to help him out. And DCE was rushing out of the line, trying to cut off Cody, because they knew if the ball was getting outside, they were getting line breaks. Because, I think Ngannou was really struggling with his sliding across and then also making a good read on who it was there. And just the pace of Walker really killed them. And then on the flip side, on the other side, Fafita let through that first try for New South Wales too, and, was off for most of the game because he had a back strain. So I think that kind of led to the reason why they couldn't rotate out. Ngannou only played the full 80. So I think they'll go away. Queenslanders was like, we probably weren't our best. We know defensively it wasn't our best game. We had a few guys banged up. We were still pretty close in this. We had 2 bomb tries essentially.
That's a good point.
The Valentine Holmes try. If he takes it on the full, does he score? Not let it bounce, and then the hammer, over the goal line, hits him where he probably should have catch it. Tough chance, but
the 14-point differential is not a reflection of how close that game was.
Exactly, and the Queenslanders, I felt like had a lot of the luck in this as well. Had a lot of really good chances too. They just couldn't capitalise it, and I think they just lacked a bit of the X factor. And I think it's a great learning lesson for Walsh. Too, that hey, you miss Origin games and you're a big part of their structures and what they've been doing. It showed that AJ Brimson didn't make a mistake. He played really, really solid. Just didn't provide them the extra spark that Walsh did.
Brimo played fine. He played fine, but he's not Reece Walsh.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not Reece Walsh, and that's said respectfully. A bit of Freddie Tings. Pick Gutho, he plays 3 minutes. It seemed to be very reactionary from losing a centre within the first few minutes and having to have the beach sprinter play there. It's going to be
Robson
interesting.
played fuck all minutes as well.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a few head scratchers when we look at the team, but the pro Freddie argument is they won the football game. So,
well, there's also the chat that Billy Slater's playing 5D chess and is lost on purpose. So they keep Brad Fittler for next year and he can win another series.
I think that's a stretch.
I know
that's a real stretch.
That's a massive stretch. But
well, even back to Gutho, I think he only came on because Addo Carr
had some sort of injury as well. Like
Yeah.
he didn't have to.
Hammy, I think.
Yeah.
Stiff.
Yeah, well, it's like in the lead up, Fittler said, "Yeah, we don't have a plan for Gutho. He's just on the bench," and it was 100% right. He wasn't bullshitting. So it was like, yeah, we just got him there as coverage in case someone gets
Yes,
injured.
can slot him in anywhere. But
Yeah.
no plan. Yeah.
Yeah, no plan. But you're going in an Origin game down a reserve essentially because you're only waiting for an injury. It just
That leads me into my next question is, did Freddie do enough to be the coach in 2024
I don't think so.
by avoiding the whitewash?
No, like his overall record's 3-3, but he's 1-3 in the last 4 as well. So it doesn't help. Losing to the worst Queensland team of all time probably doesn't help that conversation. I think
Paul Gallen's words.
Yeah, true. But I think this game kind of showed that his decisions were, poor. You picked Cody Walker, excellent. You talk about Cameron Murray and Liam Martin in the starting squad, played excellent.
They have to be.
Yeah.
They have to be starting. Both of them were unreal.
Exactly.
I think
and
that's
you
it,
can see
like-
the pace that, say, Murray gives them as a lock as well. Different to Yo, and Yo plays really well with the linkage in that with the other Penrith guys, but you take them out and then you've got Murray in there. It just seemed to flow way better. Like,
Yo played fine as a middle off
Exactly,
the bench,
exactly.
eating up some meters and
kind of played in the front row after taking off Jake Turbo. So
pretty well. And Cam Murray with the ball in his hand just looked
dangerous.
that little bit more dangerous, I thought. Liam Martin, you can't fault that bloke the way that he's played this whole series. He plays bigger than what his body would suggest, an edge back rower. I thought Kalao Matangi wasn't too bad on debut. For mine, there's no one banging down the door. So it's interesting.
for coach, yes.
For New South Wales.
And there's a few extra names like Boyd Cordner and
Yeah, heard
Michael
that
Chekin.
today.
I think Danny Braderis probably makes the most sense because he's in the coaching staff at the moment.
Yep.
So he's the only one I can kind of think of. Like, I get it. It makes
Yeah.
sense. But you also...
I think short of anything drastic happening, like the fact that they've brought in this director of whatever.
Yeah.
For
Well, I'm not
Blues.
sure if that's official, but that's on the cards potentially as well.
I think it's pretty much set up that way. So I think Phil has probably got it safe for next year as long as he picks a side like the side in Game 3 and doesn't revert back to like having your Penrith spine and trying to work around that.
I just feel like they need new ideas. And you kind of saw it.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll try a whole bunch of new things, make 7 changes. And it's like, shoot, that worked. We picked some decent guys. Anyway, like for me, I wasn't expecting Queensland to win this game. It's very hard to win 3. Like I think we looked at it and, even Queensland's decade of dominance with like 5 immortals going through that team, they only got a clean sweep once. So like it's
hard to do.
It's very hard to do. So, going into it, I wasn't expecting it. So, it would have been a nice cherry on top. But either way, like I said to you boys, it saved me buying you some brooms.
Could have used it, bro.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I bought something else, but that has to come in a couple of weeks. So I'll show you that when it comes.
That's a different type of show.
Yeah, yes.
Extra. Bradman Best, unbelievable on debut. Shouted a beer at the top of the show. Is this the best game out of a bloke that doesn't play Origin for 5 years that we've seen?
It could be because he's
Like, with respect.
yeah. I think it could also very much depend on what they do with Teddy going forward. Because, new coach might want new ideas, new captain, go younger. Do they play Latrell at 1 so that frees up a centre spot then? Healthy, if Turbo's healthy, he plays 1 and then is there a spot there that, hey, maybe Bradman Best keeps it or Campbell Graham gets a fucking go playing centre. So.
The Teddy argument for mine, it feels like the Warner argument, except Warner's done a lot more recently.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean-
he's the captain. He played unreal in this
one?
game.
He did, yeah.
He played out of his skin, and he actually touched the ball less. So it was more impact each time that he touched the ball.
I think also great service. They were getting, Damien Cook, Cody Walker, giving them, putting in the places to give them good service really helped them. So
And I can see that there are people putting their hand up. 1 through 5 for New South Wales. There's probably 15 blokes that you could pick. But for mine, I do feel like Teddy's done enough to say I'm the captain, and if I want to go around again, and we are talking about
I think it's
something that's 9 months time.
Yeah, I think
away.
it'll depend on the coach really.
Yeah.
So, that conversation, new ideas. Do I want to do something different? Yeah, that might be. Sorry, Teddy, you're not the best fullback currently. Which bit of reflection of where Roosters are at the moment, and there's plenty, like we say, plenty of dudes knocking that door down.
Ruben Cotter, player of the series. Thoughts on that?
Did he play 80 minutes in all 3 games?
80 minutes in all 3 games.
Yeah.
He made
1,000 tackles.
120. He had 1 error in 3 games. 290 run meters, 4 tackle busts.
Yeah, he got man of the match in the first game.
Yep.
Lindsay Collins got the second game, and
Cody Walker in the third.
Yeah, and we played really well in the third one as well, kind of having to play more of an edge role there. But for me, I understand it, like the work, like he was definitely worked his backside off to help Queensland win this. I just felt Lindsay Collins probably had the bigger moments. Like he had great moments in this game too. He was all over the place, picking up balls, chasing through grubber kicks.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is Lindsay Collins doing? But he was just everywhere, and that's kind of, I guess, pretty standard Queenslander stuff at this point. So, but I just felt like he had big moments there that he could have potentially won this one. But
No, I agree with you. I think Lindsay Collins probably had the highlight clips that Cotter didn't have. I kind of liked it in that it was let's reward someone that
The
did,
workman.
just did the hard work, the gritty kind of stuff.
grind it out.
That's not catching a high ball and running it through as a front rower. And to be honest, when you look at the numbers, you're like, geez, they're not bad numbers, but it's nothing to write home about. But it definitely personifies that Queensland spirit and everything that Blues fans have been trying to see. The bloke's 100 kilos dripping wet, and he plays as a middle forward and gets through the work. So I'm not super opposed to it in that sense.
I think that sort of sums up the series pretty nicely as well. Like, as well as Lindsay Collins did, and the highlights he got, like it was either he's stiff to get player of the series, but he was up there with Queenslanders as well.
yeah, the best. Well, and the only other one I can think of was Hammer.
I think
He
that's
scored
a
all
fair
three,
argument, I
so,
think.
I think if he'd scored that try and equaled the record for most tries in a series, then that's probably a different conversation. But what do you get? 4 and 3?
4 and 3. He was a bee's dick away from 5. He had 300 odd run meters, and just that try in the third game as well. When he goes down the left edge and puts it in for himself and
Just
scores.
outruns Toto. Makes him look slow.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing things that not many outside backs are doing at the moment in the rugby league. So shout out to the Hammer and probably nearly rolls us into this round, but. I'm happy for Ruben Cotter to win the medal, but definitely a few names that could be thrown in the hat there. So New South Wales also avoid the whitewashing under 19s. 3 Ethans. Did you see that in the so if I was a betting man, put your money on 1 Ethan to play Origin football moving forward. So Queensland get the biggies there, and Queensland get the biggies in the girls.
New South Wales got that one, and Queensland got the girls. Yes.
Yeah, by aggregate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can they give them 3 games?
I don't know why
fuck
not.
Me.
Yeah.
So they give them 2 games, and I don't know if it's a cost thing or blah blah blah.
Scheduling.
But scheduling. Just give them 3 games, seriously. Then you don't have to go to aggregate. There's a bit of chat ongoing. It's been going on all year.
Well, no chat. That's
it's
the
blackout.
Just blackout. Yes.
Around the media and interviews and yada yada.
Yeah, well, the players have the Rugby League Players Association, because they can't get a deal. They're sick of the NRL fucking them over. This has been going on since November, and they had that big thing in December where they said we're going to have the biggest salary cap ever, and Rugby League players like we haven't agreed to anything. So it's been a bit of a shit show for the better part of six months, and no headway. So they've taken the stance to have a media blackout that none of the players will give interviews or any sort of in-game conversation. And I guess the question is, did you notice any of that in State of Origin?
Did it apply to State of Origin?
Yes. So there was no halftime conversations. There was no after the match conversations, interviews. So they did the speeches, accepting the trophy, did the speeches, and that was it. And there was nothing else after that.
To be honest, I wouldn't hate if they cut out the halftime. I think that's a fucking encroachment on someone's privacy. So
surprisingly, it forced the analysts in commentary to actually do some analysis and talk for a little bit instead of going down to the footy players and say, "Hey, you going? Oh yeah, we're going good. It's not too bad." Or they're a bit hard and they're getting all over us, but we'll come back. The usual kind of typical rhetoric, slogans, etc., which adds no value. Made the analysts actually talk about the game and what was happening, etc. So no one noticed.
I didn't notice. It'll be interesting to see through the weekend how much the blackout does weigh.
I'm just loving all the dinosaurs going. They're so greedy, blah blah blah, etc. And it's just like, we followed the NFL long enough to know that the media is essentially in NRL and ownership's pockets. They're going to push their agenda and
pay them what they're worth,
want to pay them peanuts and save as much money as possible. So players, 100% behind the players to get what they want and get what they need.
100%. Anything else to add?
No, not really. Nothing's really come out after that. Obviously, with no players actually speaking to the media, there's probably no news.
Makes Buzz and Hopper actually have to talk about some shit for a change.
Yeah.
Better get into that. Round 20, boys. It's the last multiple buy round, so only single buys moving forward. The real business end of the season. The Knights are currently playing the Tigers. If we
I'll get a
score update on that.
Knights 18, Tigers 12, about half time.
Very good. Appy Coruscant returns after that broken jaw. The big talking point in the week of rugby league outside of State of Origin was this Bulldogs pub deal that apparently never happened. Who do you believe? One Phil or the other Phil? Forget about Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. These are the two fucking big studs that are going to throw down in the octagon. I heard, apparently. The battle of the fossils.
They both have, fossils. They have a heart attack.
we need the ECGs on standby. So essentially, Buzz wrote an article that was saying Tino Fasasua Malawi was going to come down to the Bulldogs. Gus had enticed him with a contract and some shares in a pub, an investment opportunity, if you would. Mm-hmm. Gus came out on Monday and said, it's utter rubbish. Someone made it up. They're trying to taint, our club because I'm the head of the club. And Buzz was saying I didn't break any rules of journalism. Essentially, if I could do a pay-per-view, $60 on a Sunday, there's no $60 that I would rather spend to watch Phil Gould v. Phil Rothfield in a physical sense.
Yeah, and some short shorts and some gloves and go for it.
I'll pay extra. Let's go. All right, what do we think?
Would they even be able to get up into the ring? There's a few stairs there.
Use the A-frames.
Give me a hand. All right. What's their thoughts here?
Well, I generally with a lot of this stuff, where there's smoke, there's probably fire, so there might be some truth to this. I think a lot of the clubs have been doing dodgy third-party deals for a very long time, and we talk about the Roosters, Sombreros, and paying people in Mercedes and Hiluxes. There's got to be some truth to some of those rumours. There's definitely got to be some deals happening in the background. So, whether it's a pub or whether it's something else, they got to put the money together to entice Tino to go. But it's been made official that Tino's triggered that contract clause. He's now a free agent for November 1st, and so is Payne Haas doing the exact same. So, probably the two best props in the game at the moment are on the market. But on this, Phil Gould's probably got bigger problems at the Doggies at the moment that he needs to deal with. And he's going to do what he can to get a player, and if he throws in a pub deal, then that's what he'll do.
So,
is there anything wrong with it? Is there anything wrong having shares?
I don't think you can't. I don't think
as long as you report it and you say it's a third-party deal, it's part of his deal.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can offer that outside of the salary that you're paying someone. That's my understanding of how it works.
I mean, the implications of it as well. So you offer this guy shares in a pub or whatever, hotel, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What happens if they don't want to play for the Bulldogs anymore?
What happens?
What
happens if it loses money? Do you say that has to be reimbursed?
Yeah.
I think that's all bullshit, and I think possibly the story itself is bullshit.
Could very well be from Buzz, but
outside of that, let's just talk speculatively. Hassan and Fasur Malawi saying that they both might test the open market come November 1.
Yep.
Which club might have the cash? Who could sign these fellas? Because tell you what, it's maybe 1A and 1B in best props in the game.
Yeah, and I think we've already there's reports like 16 clubs are interested in Haas, which probably means everyone. So
I'd say so. Yeah.
like the clubs will try to find out, what he wants, which is over $1 million a year, and I think Tino's probably in the same conversation.
Are they worth it?
Well, Haas plays 80 minutes for the Broncos, so yeah, I'd say so.
Yep.
Tino's pretty close. He doesn't play a full 80, but he's the captain of the Titans, and
No, I'd agree. I'd agree
he's
on
up
both
there.
of them.
So yeah,
They're 23.
Yeah, and they're also both
absolutely
super young.
wild.
So sign him to a
think
4-year
about that
deal
for a
for a
bit.
mil plus. Yeah, and then I think they're worth it, and they'll test it. Whether Huss goes and plays NFL, I think that's highly unlikely, and I doubt it. But
Bit of a stretch.
but his manager, of course,
Fox
is,
Sports apparently.
yeah. Well, I think his manager's been probably a trial.
Building up that market.
Yeah, although the NFL's probably reaching out saying big boys that can move around, and said, hey, come over here and do a training camp, do a mini camp with us, trial and train kind of thing. See if you got anything. Because I think paying us, it's more the Jordan Mailata kind of storyline. Bring him over, see if he's got the feet, put 20 kilos on him, and he play tackle. So
Jordan Mailata is so much bigger than Payne Haas, just quietly.
yeah, well, are they the same height?
No, it's like 4 inches different.
Well, yeah.
Mailata is huge, dude.
How tall is us?
6'4".
6'4". Yeah, Mailata's 6'7". So yeah.
Midget 6'4".
Yeah. But he could play right tackle, same thing. Like he could have good feet and
He could.
put on 20 kilos to get to that 300 pounds.
He's also the best at his position currently in the NRL.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. I don't see it happening. I think it's just more.
1.94 metres.
6'4".
So yeah, I think he'll just sign a big deal, probably with Brisbane to stay. By all reports, he wants to stay at Brisbane. He just wants to see what his value is because he's $850. I think he will be next season if he takes his option, but they might just bump him up to make him feel better.
He could probably get more.
Yeah, well, Wests would throw everything at him.
You'd think so. The Dogs probably
Get fucked in this game.
rank outsiders, I was going to say, in this one against the Bronx.
Yeah, Bronx heavy favourites.
Big, interesting game. Manly take on the Cowboys at 4 Pines Park. This is 9th versus 10th.
One turbo, I think, if JT backs up because Ben hurt his hamstring again, and of course
Tommy Turbo.
Tommy's got the shoulder, so the pec. His season's done. So if JT backs up, then they've got at least one turbo. But usually without any turbos, they struggle. So I picked the Cowboys in this one.
I've got
He's
the
in the
Cowboys
lineup.
too.
He is in the lineup.
B Turbo.
Jake.
J Turbo.
Jake Turbo.
Yep.
He has a third hamstring. I think he strained it at training this week.
Recurrent hamstrings, poor fella.
Yeah.
A third one. I've only got 2.
Third time he's done his hamstring. Sorry. But
Big game.
yeah, I think both teams kind of wanting to maintain and kind of push their way into the top 8. Big win here. I think the Cowboys have been pretty good coming off Origin games with their stars coming back. So,
Dude, the Cowboys have been better in the Origins time than without.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I feel like they just needed that kick in the bum through the Origin period and it's lit a fire under them a little bit.
Big time.
Roosters versus Storm's an interesting one. And
So-
it's going to be at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
And lots backing up. I don't think Teddy's backing up, so I think it's Joey Manu to play one. And then the rest should be backing up in Collins, Munster, Grant, Coates. It's probably must win for the Chooks, you'd think.
Yeah, and I don't think they do. I think the Storm will get the win on this one. Even though it's on the Sydney Cricket Ground, I think the Storm will be too good for them.
Warriors, Sharks, 2 p.m. Sunday. Sean Johnson, he's having some kind of year. Re-signs for another year. 14, is it, in the NRL?
It's 14th season. Very, very good there.
Wild.
Interesting take here. Sharkies taking on top 8 side. Haven't won against one of those in a while.
Warriors win?
Yeah. Are they at home?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could very well be a Warriors win here.
Finns, Panthers. Panthers will have a lot backing up. The Finns haven't
Also
been
a couple.
horrible this year, but they do run into the best team in rugby league.
Yeah, and I think by reports Nathan Cleary's back.
Yeah, named on
very
the
close.
extended bench, so
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see what happens. He's very close. Fantasy owners, Starts having your pennies, but we might have a full strength Nathan Cleary come next round. And then Eels Titans, probably an important game in terms of finals aspirations. We already spoke, I suppose, about Tino and Fafita. That's 7th versus 11th on Sunday, Arvo. Josh Hodgson confirmed out for the year.
Yep. Confirmed today he's got to have neck surgery, which is unfortunate after he's had 3 ACLs, I think, as well.
Yeah, he's been through the ringer, that bloke.
So it's a bit tough there for Eels and Eels fans. And then Raiders, Souths and Dragons, lucky Dragons, hopefully they can beat the bye.
Tough game.
They did lose 2 guys during the week, both Jaden's season's done, I believe.
Did see. It's well, obviously it's between the Tigers and the Dragons for that wooden spoon, especially with the Dogs getting a win against South last week. The Dragons do play the Tigers, I believe, next week or the week after, so that could be the spoon bowl down the bottom of the table there.
Toilet bowl.
The toilet bowl.
Oh, well.
Let's go south of the border down to Victoria and the likes. Let's talk some AFL footy.
Come on, dainty fingers.
Boys, Swans, Dogs, pretty good game last night. 2 points, it went right down to it. Fancy this, 2 milestone games in terms of coaching. So Horse Longmire, 300th. Luke Bevo Beveridge, 200th game as coach. A bit about Bailey Smith in the media this week. Cat's interested in putting pen to paper with him. I'm sure there's be lots of teams that'd be interested in signing Bailey Smith. He didn't play in this one, had an illness. Sam Darcy comes in. Swans go without a recognised ruckman, which a few teams have been doing this year, and essentially gets them home. But Tim English did feast. He had 60 hit-outs in this one, 22 disposals. The Bond thinks he was pretty good with 31 and 2 goals, but the Swans do keep their slim finals hopes alive. Errol Gordon's pretty good at footy. He had 30-odd. Tom Papley, 4 goals. Swans are sort of in that Carlton, in that Richmond kind of rhetoric.
Got to make sure they beat the bad teams and then
it's all
and try to steal games against the good ones.
It's all kind of speculative. You look at that top 8 and there's a few strong teams in there. Yeah. I suppose the Swans, out of all these sort of teams in the hunt, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down there, Monks, there's even after that win, they're only equal with Carlton and Richmond, who have games in hand. So it'll be a tall order if they can get it done, but obviously winning last night didn't do their chances any harm.
Definitely.
How are we halftime here in D's lines?
Looks like halftime. It was interesting. The D's got out to a very big lead. I think they had a 30-1 lead at one point. But Lions go into the half leading by 1 point. So
a point in it?
Yeah. So 51-52 in the Lions' favour. They've really must have clawed their way back into the game, and this is a big game for them because a lot of the media talk all week's been, can they win at the MCG? And especially against Melbourne. So, it looks like they might have started off a little bit jittery, but they've come back in, brought this game back together. So hopefully a good halftime speech and they can go out there and play a good game of footy.
I think I saw they've lost 12 of their last 13 at the MCG. So obviously the proverbial knock on the Lions is they can't win the big games at the G, but they've set themselves up for a big second half here. Christian Petrarca started on half forward. He booted 3 in the first half. And then
sharing the love.
Yeah, a lot of goals between everyone else, which is interesting. We'll keep an eye on this one as it unfolds. Disposals, Lockie Hunter, 18. McLuggage. Joe Danaher, 15 in a half, the big man for the Lions. We'll see how it all plays out.
I guess the big story going into this game was Grundy being omitted, was the official word used, not rested, but omitted. So to me, that sounds like dropped.
Admitted it is dropped. Omittedly. It's interesting. The bloke who was essentially, top 5 ruckman in the comp last year at Collingwood coming in.
Probably still arguably one of the talents to be.
Yeah, on talent you'd think so. Is it omitted? Is it rested? Who knows? It's a long season. They bring in Van Rooyen, who's been very good up front.
Well, I think that's the story. They want to try a different combination of tools and see if that helps them. Because they're the team at the moment sitting there in 4th. they're trying to stay in touch with the 3 teams ahead of them, to kind of push away from all those teams behind them as well. They want to be up there in that conversation as being one of the best teams in the comp.
I'll be surprised moving forward if Brody Grundy is omitted. Omitted.
I don't think he's going to be
22.
playing VFL for the next month.
No, I can't see it happening for the old unicorn. Look, if you can have one of the best ruckmen in the AFL, why not have 2? That would be my thinking. Saturday's games, the Magpies take on the Dockers.
Pies by a lot.
Is that the early game tomorrow? Oh, this is back to front here. Yeah, Pies by a lot. Freo did get smacked up by Carlton at home last weekend, and some pretty big ins for Collingwood in Maynard. Mixed day, side bottom. They will be without Tom Mitchell. Dacos, it's his Brownlow outside of an injury or suspension?
Yeah. I'm not going to say that. Yes, outside of a suspension.
Can you bring up the odds there?
Yeah, I was going to say if he does a very rugby league thing, then he might miss out on the Brownlow.
I think he's about 250 for odds.
I thought he was shorter than that a couple of weeks ago.
Monks will chase that up, I'm sure. What else is happening tomorrow? The Suns take on the Saints.
Well, that's the other big story during the week.
Chewy Jew
Gone. He'd been there 6 years.
Yeah, I think this is 5, maybe.
5. Yeah, he's been there a long time. He's their second coach in the history of the club.
No, I think a few more than that, but not many.
Not many. I think that's probably the story. It's been 6 years. Haven't really seen much improvement on their position on the ladder come season's ends. It's 5 years, sorry. And whether it's, enough's enough, we can't keep going next year. Are we going to be able to recruit the players that we need to improve if the coach is Stuart Jew? Like, can we get someone else, a big name, potentially to come live on the Gold Coast? Those were
on the Gold Coast.
X's and O's, Dave. X's and O's.
That's it, right?
Do you think it's a bit stiff, given the teams that they've lost to recently?
And did they win their last match?
No, well, they lost to Port and they lost to Collingwood. So they lost to 1 and 2.
Yeah, and they're still within...
And before that, they hammered Hawthorn.
Yeah, and they're not, too far outside the 8 as well.
They're 7 and 9.
Yeah, they've been competitive this year. I just feel like they've just had enough. And whether, maybe some Hardwick conversations have been had in the back rooms.
Sure.
That's been the conversation. It's like, hey, can we get a massive name coach like that? That'll help them do their recruitment drives, etc. Get some big players on the Gold Coast. But I don't know. Gold Coast in both leagues has just been
it's a graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tough place, tough gig for any coach.
A little bit stiff for mine, based on current performance.
And you follow those options outside of Hardwick. It's the man that's on screen at the moment. Is Buckley going to go there? Otherwise, it's going to be a first-time head coach. Like, there's not a lot of... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's not a lot of talent out there at the moment that's available to come and coach an AFL squad.
Dacos under the $2.
Under $2, sitting at $1.80, with Petrarchus sitting right behind him at $6. Well, not right behind him, $6. And the Bont and Butters at $10 each, with Toronto's rounding out the top 5 at $12.
Petrarca has 3 goals in the first half here. Who knows? What do you got up there?
That's just coaches for the Suns.
So he's
fourth there.
Fourth.
Third official, because there's 2. There was an interim.
Yeah,
Third official.
Rolling into
look at their win percentages though. That is
Pet
a fucking
Cemetery, Stephen King.
That is a fucking graveyard. 27, 26.
Graveyard. It's a graveyard.
And 29% win percentage.
Yeah.
Stephen King jokes.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry, I talked over you.
Any more Stephen King novels? Jake Nicholson, what's that one?
I don't know. It's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
What's that? It, yeah. Pennywise?
Yep.
Here's Johnny.
Do you want to believe?
Here's Johnny. Let's go. Let's roll into the biggest game of the round, by all accounts. Blues take on Port. Blues have got the season back on track, it would seem, although they've got to beat a team.
Watch it get knocked off rails again.
They've got to beat a team that's got 12 in a row.
Yes.
So it's no
easy task.
No easy task, that's for sure. They do play them at home, and they've looked like they've gone in the right direction. Really handled Freo very easily at home last week, and it'll be interesting to see how they play Saturday night. It's just so tight. It's so tight in those teams that have got a sniff for the 8. They play Port this week. They play Collingwood at the G next week. I think they have to win one of those games to have a hope.
Yes, I tend to agree. And that's going to be a very, very tough ask, unfortunately, for Blues fans.
Cats Bombers down at GM HBA. I saw something in the media this week. It's like the fourth time in the last 20 years that the Bombers have actually gone down the road to play the Cats. Seems the big Melbourne clubs like to play Cats in Melbourne. You know, get big crowds. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, plus it's a bit of a fortress for Geelong, so yeah, they prefer not to go and play there because they potentially lose. But the Bombers, what do they sit, 5th? Moment?
5th, yep, sitting 5th at the moment. And yeah, this is a big test, obviously, with Cats kind of on that rise after a very slow start to the season.
They have, for Bombers, they got to again prove that point.
Yeah, can they stick in the 8 at the very least? So yeah, big game for the Bombers.
Yeah, Geelong at home though.
Yep.
Big challenge.
Yep. The odds have Geelong $2.24 and Essendon's out at $3.95 at the moment.
That's pretty
It's a
juicy.
bit of value.
Yeah, that's pretty juicy for Essendon considering where they are on the ladder and how they've been playing this year.
Yeah.
I guess it just talks to the fact that Geelong playing in Geelong.
Yeah.
Carlton's favourite in the Port game. Why?
Only just that is a very close one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Adelaide to Melbourne's not that far. So
Crows Giants. These are two teams that have been a bit of a surprise packet. They sit 9th and 10th.
I think Crows at home though. And that'll be the difference for me in this one.
Tex Walker's got his eyes on a Coleman. What are the odds?
Who's
say?
leading the Coleman at the moment? Is it Tex?
I think it's pretty much a 3-horse race with
Him,
Tex,
Cameron.
Curnow, and
Or is Jeremy Cameron fallen away?
Nick Larky.
Larky's 4 behind.
Yeah.
So Tex and Curnow 48 apiece and 44 for Nick Larky. How good's that? North full forward. Let's go.
Yeah.
Where do we get to? Crows Giants.
Yep.
I
Crows
think it
actually
was-
pretty short in this one.
Yeah, I think we all said Crows.
Where were we?
$1.30.
Yes, $1.32.
Again, at home.
GWS are out at $3.30.
Sunday, Roos, Hawks. Trying to avoid the spoon.
Trying to avoid this match.
Come on, we were just talking about Larky a second ago.
Larky, he's going for the Coleman. And Eagles, Tigers. I'd love to see the Eagles get an upset over
Out
there.
at home. I don't see it though. I think the Tigers will be too good for the Eagles with what the product the Eagles will be putting together. And Roos Hawks is a coin toss for me at the moment.
That'll wrap up the week in the AFL. Bye rounds all done in the AFL. So again, business season. Let's go.
And
Few big
Five
games.
rounds
Keep an
left.
eye on there.
yeah, moving on.
Yeah, let's talk a bit of soccer.
Yeah,
of soccer.
Sui.
Boys, the biggest event in women's sport is about to kick off. And where is it kicking off, you might say? In Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this New Zealand?
Well, technically it's kicking off in New Zealand, but the Women's World Cup is about to be underway. It starts Thursday. New Zealand take on Norway over at Eden Park. I've had a look at the groups, and I've made the assessment that New Zealand should get out of their group. Norway will be their biggest task. They should get through the Philippines.
Yep.
And then Switzerland,
Tough challenge.
tough challenge, but I think New Zealand get through. Who gives a fuck about New Zealand? Let's talk about the Matildas. Sam Kerr, Ellie Carpenter, Caitlin Ford and co. They are about to be on the biggest stage in the world. They think it's going to be the most attended Women's World Cup of all time when it comes to crowd numbers and viewership.
Yep.
Big game against Ireland on Thursday night. I think they're expecting about 80,000 there at Accor Stadium or Stadium Australia, whatever they're going to call it.
They can't use the sponsorship name, so whatever it reverts back to.
The Olympic Stadium?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
Sydney Olympic Stadium, something like that.
Stadium
Stadium
Australia.
Australia,
Australia.
there you
Stadium
go.
Australia. Let's go. Now, looking at this group, boys, Ireland, Nigeria, we should get through
I
'em.
love the name of the Perth Stadium.
What's the Perth Stadium? Perth Rectangular Stadium. Well, so's Melbourne.
Same with Melbourne, yeah.
It's rectangle.
The Rectangle
It's
Stadium.
not a spare. I mean a square. A spare is what you're bowling. All right, boys. No, seriously. Canada are a pretty elite soccer team, so we've got to watch out for them. The Nigerians, they've been known to cause an upset here or there. So must-win game, I would think, Thursday night against Republic of Ireland. There's going to be 80,000 in there cheering on our Matildas. There's a lot of expectation as well. It's a home World Cup. The Yanks have won 2 in a row. A lot of those European teams go pretty well as well. So be interesting when Monks brings up the odds. But it's a must-win, I think, against Ireland. I think the girls are playing France right now as well in the last warm-up for the World Cup. What else can we say? Have to beat Ireland and then go from there and get through the group in first.
What do you got in front of you, Jimmy?
Yeah, it was actually really confusing. I thought we were all in for a good shot. But US, as you said, favourites to win it outright at $3.50. England behind them $5. Spain $6. Germany behind Spain at $8. For those wanting to put something on Australia, they're $13 to win outright.
We've been pretty competitive against all those guys as well. So, yeah, don't sleep on the Matildas.
Bit of cash. Let's go through the groups. Spain, Costa Rica, Zambia, Japan. You'd think Spain and Japan walk out of that. Group D, if you wouldn't mind, Monks, keep scrolling. England, Denmark, China, Haiti.
Can you English?
Good luck, Haiti, in that one, I would think.
Yep.
Scrolling down to Group E,
That'll be a tough
USA,
group.
Netherlands, Portugal. Good luck to Vietnam in that one.
Yeah, that one too.
France, Jamaica, Brazil, Panama. You'd think France and Brazil get out of that.
Yep.
Sweden, South Africa, Italy, Argentina. That'll be pretty tightly
really
contested. The
competitive, yeah.
Swedes obviously go very well in the girls. And then what's Group H? Germany, Morocco, Colombia, South Korea. I think Australia get out. I think New Zealand get out. And then after that, it becomes knockout kind of shit. It's going to be good. There's so many young girls around Australia that play soccer and are looking at this and thinking, well, this is a legitimate
2-week tournament.
Tournament, yeah, exactly. It probably ends up being about a month.
Yeah, no, well, it's 5th around the
End of
16th.
August.
No, sorry, when we start in July. So yes.
Yeah, we're starting in
End of August. So looking forward to it all unfolding. They think it'll be the most watched Women's World Cup of all time. And obviously,
awesome.
as Aussie fans, we hope that the Matildas can do their best and maybe,
Nick it. Win one.
well, get out of the group, round of 16, quarters, semis.
Win the whole thing.
Let's see what happens. You guys see in the news this week, they had 23 Matildas presenting the Matildas their jerseys. They had 23 young ladies whose name was Matilda.
Gotcha.
It's not bad. No, it's
giving
not
the
Gotcha.
jerseys to the Matildas. So that was quite nice.
Side question. We didn't talk about it, but New Zealand thing reminded me of it. What do you think about State of Origin going to New Zealand?
I'm not against it.
Yeah, I think if they're going to play
Neutral
one at a
ground.
neutral, it's a good way to grow.
Roll it through.
Yeah.
Have one Adelaide, one Melbourne, one Perth, one Auckland. I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
That settled out like that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be my thoughts.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that sort of leads into like that whole like expansion as well. Like you're always going to have New South Wales versus Queensland, but then do you have like that sort of New Zealand versus Ireland, islands, or do you have some other iteration of State of Origin where you can get some of those other players best of go up against each other as well?
Agreed.
Final round time.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
And still. So, boys, Volk, he gets through Yair Rodriguez. Third round TKO after a spear tackle. 4 weeks to the judiciary for that one.
Big takedown.
He's very good at fighting, isn't he, Volkanovski?
Yeah.
A little bit after the fact with Ilya Topuria. Let's talk about the fight first. He had him pretty much measured up. What was your take on that one, Shauna?
Yeah, I think I said it in the preview. Rodriguez has that scary kind of abilities. Like, will he surprise Volk or something? And you saw him throw some interesting shit, and Volk was just too up to it. Was really never phased or worried about any of that. Just played his game plan. Could really take him down at will and just beat him up when he wanted to. So. And that's pretty much a story of Volk's career at the moment, where you look at some of these guys, say he's fought, what they look like post fight, and you say, not good. He's done his work, and there's not much left for him in that division, as you mentioned before. Whether he takes another fight in the featherweight division with a guy kind of middle rank that's coming up. Undefeated at the moment, or does he again go push his chances at say lightweight? Try to take on Islam. I think Islam said he was injured, so he could be out. I've seen jokes with the big news today with Hill having to renege the light heavyweight belt. That Volk's going to go up and fight for that.
At light heavyweight,
light heavyweight.
Why not?
Yeah, put on the weight, but I think he can really do what he wants now. He's got that belt, and he should probably push for some competitive fights in the lightweight division. Yep. He's the longest title reign. I think he's over 1,300 days worth of a title reign at the moment. So he's just dominant.
That's absolutely wild.
Great for Australian champion.
Just looking at the stats here, he had 149 total strikes against 57, 7 takedowns to nil, and then 66 significant strikes against 40. Yeah. So irrespective of a knockout, just absolutely dominated.
And one could argue they let that fight go 20 seconds too long as well when he was on top.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it. Obviously, we're biased. Is he the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world?
I think Jones is probably for me, Jones is one, but I've been watching Jones fight since he came into the UFC. But Volk's very, very close to that, and I think his work recently and his work rate probably helps as well, because he's fought twice already this year.
Yep. Yeah, twice. Yep.
Yeah, and fights quite regularly. Has a great resume for what he does. So it's fair for him to be pound for pound number one. And
whereas Jones, obviously going up a weight division,
took 3 years off.
Hadn't fought for
has one win, but also not over the current champ like he had. He's not the linear champ, as he will, and we'll talk about that later on. But I just think John Jones, for mine, is. John Jones is probably the best fighter in the world. So, Volk's in the pound-for-pound rankings is fair to be number one.
Yeah. So, after the weekend, he is number one for the moment.
Well, it's equal.
Tied
one there with John Jones on that one.
I didn't realise that one. But I suppose the only thing against John Jones is he's only had that one fight in the last couple of years. So,
and on him, they did announce the Stipe fight. That's in October, I think, now. So, that's good to see. And that's a massive fight to see. But also for Stipe, I think he hasn't fought in 2 years.
Yeah,
so it's a big layoff for him too.
How old is he? He must be 40.
Yeah, getting close to it. Whereas John Jones is still over 30, which is crazy to think
It's
about.
wild. I think there's a reasonable argument for Volk to be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
Agree.
Stipe is 40 years old.
There you go. Yeah. Young lion like John Jones coming back. It's going to be a tough one.
Last fought March 2021.
Yes.
So that's 2 years.
2 years and a bit.
Yep.
What are our thoughts with Ilya Topuria mouthing off post-fight? Obviously, a good record leading into this. If he does get the Volk fight, I think Volk said something along the lines of, I'll stomp him.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think from what we're seeing from Volk, that's probably accurate, so we'll take that. But, if there's a featherweight fight to make at the moment, that's the one, because he just came off his victory a couple of weeks ago. So
Pieced up Josh Emmett, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, that if they want to make another fight in the featherweight, that makes the most sense. But I think Volk's kind of at that point where he's a big enough star. There's some talk about getting him on that card here in Australia in a couple of weeks' time. I think UFC 293, which is a huge turnaround. But we'll talk about Faf not not Faf, Duplessis,
Yeah,
will fighting Israel on that card. So that's in 8 weeks. So it's
Well, who would he fight?
yeah. What's the thing? Who's going to be ready in that time frame? Like, it's either rush through a featherweight fight, or because I think Islam's hurt at the moment and he's not going to fight until end of the year, if not next.
Before we get to not Faf, let's talk about the little fellas in Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno. This one went to split decision.
Yep.
For mine, it was a pretty clear winner. What do we think?
Yeah, and if you look at it, the split decision, the other bloke gave 4 rounds to Monero. So, which, by all accounts, is like you don't give him 4 rounds in that fight.
No.
Like it was a competitive war. They fought very hard, but yeah, I think it's pretty clear who won that, which is pretty impressive considering Alexandra, he had been, I think, an Uber Eats driver 2 years ago. Kind of thing.
Wow.
Like, he won a fight a year or so ago and got a 50K bonus, and that's where he essentially dedicated himself to the UFC. So, to go from that far to the featherweight, I think is excellent because since Mighty Mouse, I think 4 champions or something like that. So adds another one to the list because it's between it was him, Figgy, then I think it was Cejudo and Mighty Mouse were the 4. So for a division that's been on the precipice of dying for a very long time, it's great to see some more challenges in there, some more names getting pushed in it. So. I think it was a great win from him in a great back and forth battle, a bit of a fight, a bit of a war. So it was good. And Brazil has a champion again.
Well, big for Brazil.
Yes, yeah.
You think about fighting, you think about mixed martial arts, you think about Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and the fact that Brazil has a champion, I think it's big for the sport.
Yep.
It's unusual that there was this period where there was no Brazilian championship, champion, if you would, between the Nunes retirement and obviously Pantoja getting the win on the weekend. And in the men's, the likes of Glover, the likes of Charles, the likes of Figgy, all succumbing to giving up their belts in the last few years. So Brazil does have a champion once again. Got to talk about this. It's
Faf, yeah.
Look, it wasn't a title fight, boys, but it may as well have been in terms of the significance of what's going on in terms of the middleweight division and the words that were exchanged after this fight. Dricus Duplessis, he did pace up Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, knocked him out.
Credit to where credit's due. But perhaps the biggest talking point of the evening was the words in the octagon after the fight.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts there?
Israel's been in the media and wanted, this result. This is what he wanted as his next fight. I think the hyping up of the fight's fine. I think the language used is probably where it went a little bit over the board, especially in a pay-per-view that, live event. The reports of kind of like trying to goad your opponent into saying certain words as well.
It was baiting, I thought.
Yeah. But credit to Drake because he didn't really take any of that, and they'll go back and forth in the media leading up to this fight, which by all accounts will probably be at UFC 293 when they do it in Australia, but that is an 8-week turnaround, so they're going to sort that out rather soon if it's going to be the case. On the fight itself, I think it's probably the worst fight I've seen Whittaker fight in a long time. Really didn't seem up for us, but he also has a bit of an issue that his chin just isn't the same as what it was post the Yoel Romero fights. So he's always, even against Israel, there's always that moment where he gets tagged with one and he gets dropped and you're like, oh shit, here we go again. And kind of fell through in this one with Dryk's being a very strong lad at the middleweight division. So it'll be an interesting fight for Israel, but I'm not sure if it's just too quick of a fast tracking for him, but we'll see.
Your thoughts, Max?
So after that win, Dricus does jump 4 spots up to that number
5 to
1
1.
contender. I don't know, like rightfully so, but has Izzy sort of drunk the Kool-Aid a little bit too much? Is he
Don't know.
too much? Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting fight. They obviously got very, very different builds. Whether that leads into a different fighting style, I'm probably not too sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of the heritage, kind of like rhetoric and
It was gross.
Yeah,
it's
it's
considering Israel
not tasteful.
fought as a Chinese fighter for most of his pride career. It's kind of, you're just like, meh. Well, his K1 career, sorry, his kickboxing career. You're just like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I sort
I'm
of
not
think
sure.
like,
I'm not sure this is the right angle, bro.
yeah, and that's why I sort of went to the point of like, is he sort of drinking his own Kool-Aid a little bit? Is he just a little bit too?
Whatever sells fights.
Yeah, and I mean that's it as well. Like he obviously knows how to market himself, market UFC. He's a style bender for a reason. He's always going to have that flair and try and drum up some controversy. Like the obvious person you think about when in doing that is obviously Conor McGregor as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's the business that they're in as much as punching each other in the face. Like it's marketing.
Yeah, but he only went after their religion and their missuses. So it's only small things.
Yeah,
Nothing worse.
nothing at all. Nothing at all. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously talking about Izzy as well. Still going on about that mega fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg posted during the week.
I got the
Izzy, yeah, he's
ripped.
ripped. Yeah,
He is also 15 years younger or something. than Musk. He will have a significant size disadvantage, but I think the skill and the training will probably be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, grappling against world champion in Israel, Adesanya, over the week. Real or not, it's some of those photos of him, of Israel, Zuck and Volk as well. Sparring is, pretty formidable.
Let's wrap up the main card. Dan Hooker getting the win against Jalen Turner
Big win
via
for him as
split
well.
decision. Did you guys see the X-rays of the Hangman after this one?
Yeah, definitely.
Might be out for a little bit.
Clean break of the ulnar, clean orbital bone. We're talking about it pre-show. We think maybe it's orbital, maybe it's not.
Bit more jaw, but
Essentially, clean break in his forearm and a clean break in his face, and it was a scratch according to the Hangman. Good to see him back in the winners' circles. Obviously, lost to the biggest names that there is in the lightweight division, and no one can question the bloke's toughness. That's for sure.
yeah, and really helps. 2 on the trot sounds a lot better than 1 from your last 5. So, and, was he very much in that conversation of was he on his way out of the UFC? Getting 2 wins really helps put you back in the conversation. Get your ranking back at the 10th. So, hopefully he doesn't end up being the gatekeeper he kind of is at the moment, getting like a young talent and Turner and pushing him away, or getting smashed by the top tier guys, like get stuck there. Hopefully he can push himself back into the top of the lightweight division. But other than that, it was a pretty tough fight for him. It looked like Turner. Like, how did he eat Turner's head kick? I will never know, but he did and fought through it, and it was a big tough fight.
And what do I reckon about Bo Nickel, the bloke? He's been talked up by the UFC.
Crushes cans, bro.
Cans to be crushed, and credit to Val Woodbourne for taking this fight on a week's notice at most. But Bo Nickel, it seems, would be the real deal. He's got that real kind of country boy strength, some might say.
Oh, he's got a huge wrestling background.
Background. He's 5-0. He doesn't have a ranking, so
he needs one. He needs a ranking. He needs to fight some ranked dudes now.
He deserves a ranking, from what I can see.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they put him on. He's been on the back end of the pay-per-views for, I think, his last 3 fights. So he's definitely a star that they know is going to be coming through the middleweight division. Just a question of how quickly they want to push him through. But yeah, 38-second knockouts in the first round is light work.
So dominant.
Yeah, it's shortest fighter in UFC history. The minus, I think it got to minus 3,333 when it was the last one I saw. So
Very, very short. I think it was the shortest in history. You see on this card as well the amount of first round finishes there was.
yeah,
Five. Yeah.
yeah.
Undercard. We got to talk about Ruthless Robbie.
Yeah, his retirement fight. So getting the big knockout there of Nico Price.
He was the underdog in this one.
Yep. Yeah, he'd had a bit of an up and down back end of his career, but it was a great way to see him finish off his career with a very classic Robbie knockout.
Hangs his gloves up with pride. Robbie Lawler, future UFC Hall of Famer.
Oh, definitely.
Given everything for the sport. We have to talk about the Aussies, obviously being Aussies down here. Jimmy Crute goes down to Alenzo Menefield. I think that was via submission.
Submission, yeah.
And Jack Della Maddalena missed out on the fight against Sean Brady.
He fights Sunday.
Yep.
They found him a replacement.
On UFC Vegas 77, Basil Hafiz. He's on the undercard to Holm versus Silva.
Yep.
So hopefully backs up well and gets a win there.
On Jimmy Crute, I think he, some retirement chat, but I think he said he's going to take some time away from the sport, kind of reevaluate because he was kind of fast tracked. He was up there in the light heavyweight division rankings, and then as you do, you run into some really talented dudes and lost his way a little bit, lost his confidence. So hopefully he can go away and find that. And as I mentioned before, I don't want to say the light heavyweight belt is now cursed since John Jones has taken it, but that's, you can't defend it and you get significant injuries when you've got it. So Jamal Hill has a ruptured Achilles, which is a huge injury. So, he has dropped the belt, and it's kind of timely because UFC 291 has Alex Pereira taking on Jan, Polish name that's too long for me to pronounce.
Blachowicz.
For, I guess, a number one contenders fight, essentially, because I think Hill was gearing up for that. I'm not going to say Petrarca because it's not. It's Prohashka fight because I think that was coming up in the not too distant future. So yeah, whether that fight, it's the co-main, does it become for the light heavyweight belt? I think it could very well do. It makes the most sense at the moment because outside of your area that I mentioned a second ago, is it Glover? I think would be the only ones in the rankings.
Yeah, the rankings there, Mas.
In the light heavyweight division for me,
No, Glover's not there.
He's 1 through 4, please.
So you got Yuri Praka, Magomed Ankalavar, Jan Blachowicz, Alexandra Rachik, Nikita Krylov.
I really fucked you with those names.
I was going to say, I was doing right here.
Yeah. I was like, where's the Yanks in that list?
Not many. Johnny Walker.
Keep on walking. Johnny Bessa.
Yeah, so that's two. But
Anthony Smith.
But you got Jan there at 3, and Alex is coming up a division. I just think it makes too much sense for that to be the belt. But then, that adds an interesting conversation for Glover then, considering he's his coach essentially, very close friends. What does that mean in that division? But either way, it's interesting conundrum. We'll see because that's 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
2
weeks.
I think,
yeah, whether they make that change or not.
I'm going to duck out for a wee. You guys going to take boxing and into F1?
Yeah, sure.
We can do that.
So massive boxing news, I guess. Tyson Fury finally has a confirmed fight and is going to be against Francis Ngannou in a boxing match.
Yeah,
not sure if they've announced how many rounds it's going to be, whether it'll be 8 or 12. But supposedly it's not for the title, which is the WBF title, I think.
WBC.
WBC title is what Fury's got.
Yep.
So it's not for that, but it will count for the official rankings because it's a professional match, not a exhibition or some amateur shit.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is interesting, and that's in.
So it's going to be in October, 28th of October, in Saudi Arabia.
So yes, so the Saudis get their deal done because they've been trying to put together a whole bunch of heavyweight fights. Looks like Joshua and Wilder, not against each other, but they should have their own fights in that area towards that part of the year. So what do you think of Francis versus Fury there?
Interesting. I think the biggest thing for Ngannou, and like it again, you're comparing MMA to boxing, but he's always had that cardio sort of issues, heading deep into 5 minute rounds.
Yes.
How that compares
25
to
minutes deep.
Yeah, how that compares to boxing. 3-minute rounds again. We don't know how many rounds yet that the fight will be. But again, Ngannou being a heavyweight,
he doesn't have to worry
punch
about
knockout.
Doesn't have to worry about wrestling or anything like that. So
Yeah,
you see some favors to him. Like he's got the puncher's chance. He's got the power. But then we've seen Fury rise like the Undertaker from Wilder knocking him down. So I'm also not too worried because as a pure boxer and pure boxer talent, Fury's been the best at that for a very long time. It's an interesting take because they're billing it as the two, the linear heavyweight champions. Because Fury took all 4 belts from Klitschko. Didn't do all his mandaries, so a few belts went away. He came back, got another belt back. So he's never actually been defeated as a heavyweight champion. So he's still technically the linear champion. And then Francis, of course, won the UFC belt and then hasn't been beaten since he got the belt. John Jones now has that belt, but of course, Francis's belt was taken off him when he did his PFL deal. So
that's it.
Linear champions, as you will, as in they were the champions and haven't been defeated as a champion. Interesting billing. I think it'll sell really well. It'll
sell great.
Yeah, by all accounts, Francis is getting paid more in this one fight than he did his whole UFC career.
Generally seems to be the way it goes when they sign up to these boxing matches.
Yeah, I think it'll do massive money. Francis is probably not as big a household name as, say, Conor McGregor was when he fought Mayweather, but I think it'll still do really, really well, and they'll both make fuckloads of money out of it. So.
Yeah, well, any of these fights they'll make, even if it's a tenth of what the Mayweather McGregor fight was, they're still making a lot of money. I think you're always going to run into that problem, like you said, Fury with a boxing background. There's just a technical aspect to it that a lot of MMA fighters just don't seem to not necessarily get, but just don't have in their repertoire.
You got to remember, there's levels to this shit. So
yeah, that's it. And like, while it's fine in the first couple of rounds, as you start getting deeper in the rounds, start getting a little bit more gassed, that's when like your brain switches off and you just go back to technique. And I think that's where, especially with a lot of these boxing matches, where the boxers do come out on top because they can rely a little bit more on their instinct and technical aspect of boxing, whereas MMA fighters might not have that same sort of range when they're...
And you got to also think about the reach and size in this. Like, Fury's bigger than basically anyone that fights heavyweight. So it's very difficult for you as a guy that doesn't do boxing professionally to be able to like close that distance and get into even land those power shots. So I think it's going to be a tough day in the office for Francis, but he's a big dude. He'll have a puncher's chance.
Yeah, that's it.
Finish. Well, we'll run through some F1.
Run through some F1.
Yeah. Give some new.
Bastian Vettel.
So we had Silverstone last weekend. Was the racing between podcasts. Max Verstappen wins again. Shock. But the big shock, I guess, was the McLarens. They qualified second and third, and they finished second and fourth. And that was only a late safety car that allowed Lewis to steal third place from our man Oscar, but it was his highest finish for the Australian. We will take that, but it's a huge improvement for the McLaren. They, by all reports, look like a rocket ship now. They've did a massive upgrade going into Silverstone, so that's a really big improvement for them. So we'll see if they can keep it. Ferrari's kind of fallen off. Max is out in front by himself. Mercedes are there and thereabouts, and then Perez has been struggling to qualify. So that's kind of the story of the season so far, and Max is waiting for a challenger to the point that he had a 24-second lead, and on the second last lap he pitted to get fresh tyres so he could get the fastest lap on the last lap and get us extra single point.
Is he taking the piss now? Or?
That essentially is taking the piss. Like his team was saying, no, we don't need to risk it. Like you don't want to go into pits and fuck something. But he came out. He still had a 2-second lead.
Sure he did that in the Belgian Grand Prix as well.
Yeah, but I think his lead was longer in that one. In this one, they came up. Actually, that was the Austrian Grand Prix. They came up closer.
Sorry, Austrian.
So they came up closer than that. But my point is that he's kind of taking the piss at the moment with how good he's going. Perez on the other side, maybe not so good. And then that leads us into the conversation about Daniel Ricciardo is back, baby. He did a tyre test at Silverstone on a super hard compound, I think is what they were doing. But he was 0.07 of a tenth off Max's pole qualification, which is very impressive considering he was on such a harder compound of tyre. In a comparable, he was driving a Red Bull. So by all accounts, Horner called Marco and said his pace is really good. And Marco said, cool. And then he rang him back and said, I've just sacked De Vries. And that was the conversation. So he's like, yep, Danny accepted the role. Like they obviously did it on the day. He's now, as I said, De Vries is out, been sacked, which is unfortunate for him because he's actually an older rookie driver. He's 27, 28. So, he's run out of chances in F1 and they really didn't give him much here at AlphaTauri, and Ricciardo will go into the second team there along Yuki because De Vries had been about 0.3 slower than Yuki across the whole season, and they really pushed him. He couldn't really improve. So known commodity in Danny. Can Danny go in there and out qualify Yuki? And then the conversation, if he starts out qualifying Perez, who's hasn't made Q3 in 5 races, which is very, very bad for a Red Bull standpoint, considering Max is getting poles and winning races. He should be second quite regularly or in the top 5, not starting 15 or back. In a much worse machine, then there's a conversation as well, does Danny Rick make a good spot for us in 2024? That's the strategy that Danny's obviously going with. That's how he thinks he can get back in that spot. By all reports, he's got a seat at AlphaTauri, which won't be called that next year because of the rebranding. And I think, if they rebrand it to Red Bull something or other, having Danny as the face of that really helps. So there's by all reports, he's got a seat already for next season at AlphaTauri. But, I think he's pushing. I want to be, standing next to Max. I want to, be helping win a world Constructors Championship, and then, maybe even win a couple races or even push Max. Compete with him next year.
That's it. I think, you said it before. I think, AlphaTauri doesn't have race day pace.
Yeah,
it's
one
hard
of the
for
worst
them
teams.
They've really taken a step back, which is a hard sell in a deal like this for Danny. Like, he's going back to what is essentially what would have been Renault a few years ago.
And he said during last
ago.
season he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to sign with Haas. He didn't want to sign with bottom end teams. But I think he sees.
But AlphaTauri is always
It's
aside from Perez, you become a Red Bull driver through AlphaTauri. So
I think Danny's quote was, it's glad to be back with the Red Bull family. Not hey, I'm glad to be racing for AlphaTauri. I think he pushes his goal.
Again, he got his Red Bull seat through Toro Rosso back in the day. It's that natural progression
for him, full cycle.
Exactly. So it's really being able to show that he can out-qualify Perez, who, like you mentioned, hasn't been doing well in qualifying.
Do better than Yuki, show that he's got that pace. And then, if he starts pushing Perez qualifying, and we've got Hungary next weekend, some serious questions will start being asked because
that's it.
It's interesting because Horner, again, during the week reconfirmed that Perez seat's safe. But we had the same thing about Gasly, and then Alex Albon took over. Like they are pretty quick to put to the sword drivers that are underperforming.
That's it.
And they don't really have a long term need for Perez in that relationship.
Yeah.
So that they could go back to Danny.
Yeah, and again, even going back to DeReeves, like it's a cutthroat sport. Like if Danny doesn't take this seat, it goes straight to someone else who's come up through F2. There's heaps of reserve drivers. I think Liam Lawson was going to be the person that Marco would have called straight after Danny, and he would have been without a seat this year, next season, probably for another few seasons until. And
then he doesn't have those years left, unfortunately. So but I think it's great for us Australians. 2 Australians on the grid, first time since 2011, I think, when it was Ricardo starting and Webber finishing up his career. So but anyway, we're entering silly season in F1. There's rumours of Lando's got a deal done with Ferrari for 2025. Carlos Sainz got a deal same year for Audi, and Leclerc's going to go to Mercedes. But then, Lando's following Red Bull Racing on Insta, and
Marco was talking to Lando's agent.
Yeah, exactly.
At Silverstone as well.
They want to do that Max Lando combination dream team kind of look. So, you're in the who the fuck knows kind of period, and it's silly season. So we've only 10 races in. There's another 16, I think, to go. So it's a long season, and there'll be a lot more to come. And, there's pictures of Toto Wolff meeting with De Vries during the week. Mick Schumacher was testing with McLaren as well. So, there's plenty. There's not enough seats, and there's plenty of good young drivers knocking down the door.
Yeah. Talking about the socials and stuff, I think I saw over the week as well, just like a little feel-good thing as well. So, obviously, with Ricardo testing, he was in the garage in his in the seat, just like doing his thing, and Sebastian Vettel, who's an advisor with Red Bull, came up and had a quick chat with him as well, which was kind of cool, that full circle thing as well.
Surprised Danny too.
Yeah, teammates as well. So.
Seb was also running Senna's McLaren around Silverstone too. So I feel like getting ready for, is it Goodwich? They did the Goodwich Festival of Speed or some shit like that in England. That's happening right now. So I think he was, because they were taking that car to that, and I think he was giving it a stretch in its legs in Silverstone.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, that is F1. Another race in a week's time. No race this weekend, race the following weekend. Wimbledon?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up, boys, with Wimbledon. So into the semis in, I think, both the ladies and the men. Alcaraz v Medvedev, Yannick Sinner versus the Joker. I suppose the biggest talking point is, can the Joker win 4 in 1 year?
Well, this being number 3 needs to do it, and he's got some challenges, and he made some interesting comments after his quarterfinals win, and was just like, I can't be beaten. But with the, not, he said, I'm not because I'm overly cocky, it's because, I'm up the top, I'm being chased by all these young guys, they're after me, you have to come and beat me if you want to win this, win a Grand Slam. And, he's right, he's the GOAT, so he's a heavy favourite against
and $1.20.
So I think it's looking like him and Carlos for a very tasty final. But having said that, was it Medvedev that beat him last year at Wimbledon to prevent him from getting the sweep?
It might have been.
Either way, like, he's going to have a good challenger come out of the other side of the grid. If he does his job and beats Sinner, massive upset if Sinner gets it here. He was 8th seed, I think.
Over to the girls. Ons Jabeur are taking on Marketa Vondrousova. Hope I said that right. Ons starting as favourite, has never won a major or a Grand Slam as she goes into it. Going to be interesting. She's seeded versus the unseeded Vondrousova. It's all going to play out over the weekend.
Yep. And bit of golf, chat?
Bit of golf. The British Open is a week away. They're playing in Scotland. Scotland, the home of golf. What do you got there, Monks? F1.
Going back to F1.
Yeah,
we can talk about golf first if you want.
Finish the golf.
Not too much to talk about. Just the British Open is a week away, and it's going to be an interesting lead up in the Scottish Open to see what happens there.
Yeah, there's been some interesting conversations during the weeks, well, last week, to do with the merger because it's going through, I think, US courts because they kind of review all major mergers like this, and some of the takeaways and like, how Greg Norman was essentially going to be axed.
Yeah.
The conversations about having a PGA tournament in Saudi Arabia and then having live golf type tournaments, so team-based tournaments around the other PGA events in other places. So, kind of showing what they've semi-agreeing to.
Sure.
But, then you had Ricky's comments during the week. And it's like, hey, if there was only live golf, I'd be retired. So
Yep.
I don't think he's keen on some of those kind of concepts, but we'll see.
We'll see.
And Monks, it's quite interesting. You can bet on whether Danny Ricciardo outraces Sergio Perez.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the pain?
If he beats him in one
hallmark.
race, you pay $1.50. So, so the rest of the season 16. Actually, it's pretty to beat Yuki in 7 different races is paying $1.72. So they're saying, they're saying in the next 16 races he's going to beat him in onwards. He's going to beat him in all those.
Yeah, there's no market
largely
for
in all
anything
those
less
races.
than 6. So
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, that's yeah.
Oh, there you go. To beat Yuki in all remaining races is paying $61. That's such an odd thing to bet on.
Yeah, I was
Good
looking
value.
at odds for Wimbledon and that market came up. So
Daniel Ricciardo.
obviously creating a lot of stirs in Australia, which is good to see for an F1 fan.
It's
Indeed,
a bummer
indeed.
he's driving a giant turd, so we'll have to see. Again, when I want to see things, we'll have to see how that plays out and whether he actually has some decent pace in a giant turd.
Thank you to everyone that's listened on the Esky tonight. We appreciate the listenership. Is that a word? The
Sure.
Lions lead the D's by 21 points heading into the fourth quarter. Big game. Can the Lions win at the MCG? Seems they can play 3 quarters there, that's for sure. We'll watch the end of it and report back to you next week. Let's go Aussies in the Ashes. New South Wales, clean sweep next year. That's probably what we got to take out of this. 3-0, 2024. But
They'll pick the wrong team again.
in all seriousness, let's go Aussies as we go to Old Trafford, and we will chat next weekend, maybe the weekend after, on the Esky here. Thank you to those that have listened. May God have mercy on your soul, etc.
Bye. Press your button.